This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
We had to really burn rubber in the last episode of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Looks like steak for dinner.
Well, like episode 82, this week's Hyperthetical is based on a news story. We are going to have some fun discussing the attacks on Death Star 1 and Death Star 2.
Yes, we are.
How about this? What was your reaction after Luke made the shot versus when Lando emerged from the Death Star?
Oh, well, I mean, gosh. Yeah, you're happy for Lando emerging from the Death Star because you got Nine Numb next to him, you know. Stack of pancakes, as my husband calls him. But
we've grown past that in society, ma'am.
So it's okay to tell Bothans that they can go die, but you know, whatever.
That's their diversity.
So back to what I was going to say.
I'm with you, Dennis. I just feel like the second Death Star attack had so much more emotionally driving music behind it. And, you know, not to take anything from the first one, because, I mean, let's face it, the first one's classic, you know, but I still play that in my head, like, when I'm trying to make it through a red light. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, red light comes on, I'm like, pull up! All craft, pull up! You know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm with you on that.
That's a good point. I mean, that when you started talking about it, then I started to remember the music.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, up until the red light comment, that was one of the most eloquent things you've said on this podcast. But,
Okay, you've had all the time you need on the simulators, but it's time to try the real thing.
I'm ready, but I'd feel better in Mom's O-Wing.
Nah, those things roll over too easily. Wait, you're in the wrong gear!
Smith's house.
Oh man, I just finished paying off their repairs from the last accident. Okay, now back up. Wait, you're turning. Stop before you cause more damage.
I'm trying.
Stop twisting the joystick. Don't touch the trigger.
I'm not.
Oh boy.
Yes, the big story of the week. The Star Wars show for July 10th, 2019 debuted a brand new stormtrooper that will make its first movie appearance in The Rise of Skywalker. Clad in all red armor, the Sith Trooper is the latest in the legacy of stormtroopers. And yeah, there's a lot of red in the Instagram lines and that type of thing as soon as this was announced.
It came from behind.
yeah, hello, Scoundrels, and welcome back. Here's what is in store for this week's show. With San Diego Comic-Con behind us, there was a wide variety of stories in the news ranging from theme parks and publishing announcements to the Mandalorian developments to discuss. The discussion segment, we're taking on Alexander Freed's first book in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. As usual, we'll get to listener feedback and Silence Fools. Thanks for joining us for another show. This is episode 84 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
It's not a long time ago. It's not in a galaxy far, far away. It's right here, right now. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. The source for Star Wars news and discussions with your hosts, Dennis Keithly.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Jay Krebs.
Yeah, but it's custom faded.
And Darth Taxus. Get ready for fast-flying, saber-swinging, hot space opinions from your hosts, analysis, and other stuff, fun stuff. I'm not your host. I'm just a generic, unpaid announcer.
Thanks, Mario.
Ahoy there, Scoundrels! You've returned to the podcast that flies by any part of its pants. I'm your co-host and B-star fighter pilot,
Darth Taxus!
coming to you from the Spelling Bee ready room of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me are my co-hosts who say Taxus is how you spell relief. Dennis, the Phantom Menace Keithly, and Jay, the Huttier Krebs. Dennis and Jay?
Wow, I think I'm already going to need an antacid after that one. But,
and an uncle acid. Yeah.
Yes, I am Jay. Jay, not just Jay.
Mm-hmm.
I fly a J-Wing. So, hey, Scoundrel Nation, wherever you are, Howdy, welcome back. Dennis, hello.
Hi. I'm not sure how to follow that up. Yeah, I'm Dennis with two N's, since we're spelling things. But it's good to be back. It's been weeks since we've all been together and recorded. That's largely due to my travel, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. What have y'all been up to Star Wars wise recently? I know, Jay, you had a pretty cool opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Last time we spoke, I was getting ready to perform, I guess you could say, as Ahsoka for some photo ops at a local establishment here in my hometown called Operation Fandom. And that went really well. I had a great day. It wasn't overly hot that day. Thankfully, I had some shade, so I wasn't melting by the time I left. But I had probably about 30 or 40 people that I got photographs with that day. And the best one was this little girl who was just so happy to see me. And she was just literally jumping for joy. She was about 5 or 6 years old. And her mom said, "You were the only reason we came out here today. We saw it in the paper that you were going to be here." So that, that for me just makes it amazing.
That's awesome. That is really cool.
Does it seem
and that's why I do it.
It's a little interesting to me that a 5-year-old would have Ahsoka on the radar.
Well, I mean, animated series and that type of thing.
Okay.
I had a feeling that maybe her mom was a little bit of a Star Wars fan too.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But, when that Ahsoka novel by Akon Johnson was out a couple years ago, I was reading it on the train on the way home from work, and it was, I can't remember what was going on. Maybe it was Dollar Day at the zoo or whatever, but sitting around me was a family, and the mom nudged her daughter, who couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, and pointed to the book cover, and she got all excited about that.
Really?
So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Clone Wars was the introduction to Star Wars for a lot of kids well after it quit being on the air.
Sure.
Because like you suggested, Taxus, a lot of parents had the Blu-rays, the DVDs, were watching it on Netflix or whatever, and that's how they got into it. And it was a fun show. It was a good show. And Ahsoka was such a great character. I dare say probably the most popular character in Star Wars even today. She's captured people's imagination in ways that even Rey hasn't lately. So
visually,
maybe that little girl read the novel too, Jay.
Maybe her mom read it to her. It's a bedtime story. I don't know.
Right.
And now Ahsoka will bleed the lightsabers. No, I'm kidding. But no, it was also kind of cool because I was on the sidewalk and people were driving by, and they'd beep and be like, "Hey, Ahsoka!" So cool. It was a lot of fun. I gave out lots and lots of podcast buttons that day.
Yay.
So I was even giving them to little kids, and they'd see the basket that I had them in, and they'd say, "Oh, what are those?" Of course, they see things like that, and they're like, they want one. I said, "Oh yeah, take one for yourself, give one to your parents." So of course the parents are probably like, "Where the heck did you get this?" And so I put them on our little business cards and made them available. But
it's a button grab basket, kids. Just reach in there and grab as many as you want.
Yeah. And again, I want to say thanks to Josh for having me out, Josh Lehman. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
So, Taxus, you had a recent find, Star Wars wise.
So, my oldest daughter is in college, and she's studying sound design and all this stuff. And I thought, maybe I should get a book about the ultimate sound designer, Ben Burtt. And so I started kind of trolling the internet webs and couldn't find, I was really looking for sort of like an autobiography or something, Hammers and Wire, an autobiography, and because that's how he made the blaster sound.
The blaster sound,
yeah. Yep. So, but I found the only thing I found was this, book with J.W. Rinsler, I believe is his name. And it's got, a foreword by Ben Burtt, but it basically dissects all the sounds of Star Wars. It's been out for a few years now. And finding a brand new pristine copy of it's about $80, $100 or something like that. But I was able to find like a pretty decent copy through Amazon, still with a Prime. Yes, cue the Vivaldi. And so it only cost me about $27 or so to get, but it's kind of cool because it's got this built-in like sound thing on the side where you can dial in the sounds that it's describing, and it'll play it for you. And if I'm not mistaken, it actually has some of the source sounds too, like not the actual finished ones. Like it kind of lets you hear what they used to mix in together to make the sound. So I'm kind of hoping to glean some knowledge, and also my daughter to maybe take it to show and tell day at college.
That's awesome.
They still do that,
That is really
right?
awesome. Some classes, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Depends on the professor.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. No, not that kind of show and tell, Jay.
Well, as for me, I recently finished reading Thrawn Treason, and really, really, really enjoyed it. And that'll probably be a discussion topic for one of our next 2 shows.
Sure.
So tune in for that one, Scoundrels. But have either one of you had a chance to get into that yet?
I am about halfway through, and I am really, really loving this one. I was in from the very beginning. So, yeah, all I'm going to say is I have a new appreciation for Death Troopers now.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah. Huh.
How about you, Taxus?
I, too, am about halfway through chapter 2.
Okay. Well, you always catch up in the
Maybe.
end, so I'm sure there. But I don't want to get into plot points because, like I said, we'll be discussing it on a future episode. And but it was really enjoyable. I highly recommend, if you haven't picked it up yet, go out and get it, read it, and then join us in for our conversation in a couple weeks.
Well,
But
yeah, especially since you've got the first 2 now as the foundation, you just kind of get to dive right into it. So it does capture your attention just in the first chapter. That's what.
Well, and having read the whole thing, you would benefit from having read the first 2 books, but you don't have to.
Sure.
Okay. They kind of bring you up to speed. If you're familiar with Rebels, especially the last season, you'll kind of get some grounding as to where this book takes place as well, which is really cool. But anyway, it's getting my stars recommendation right now. But anything else going on?
Well, friend of the show and designer of logo, Aaron Lee, he and his darling wife had the opportunity to go out to the California Galaxy's Edge. And Dennis, I knew you were out of town and stuff, so I didn't want to start, laying video and stuff on you. But I sent him to Jay, and I feel like that he really kind of showed us some nice videos and some perspectives of the park that, we don't really get from a lot of the social media, kind of activity. And one of the things he said was really cool and impressive. He said it took a third of a mile to get there from the other section of the park. And at some point, they must have some sort of good noise dampening, somehow set up in place, because you just hear absolutely nothing of the rest of the theme parks. And they start slowly morphing the street lamps from being something you would see on Earth to something you would see in Star Wars. So as you're walking, these little changes are taking place, to take you sort of like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or something, you know what I mean? And then, all you can hear are birds, and then slowly you start hearing mixed into that Star Wars-esque animal sounds, in the background stuff. So, man, when they talk about immersive, that's something I never knew about, was the journey to actually get there and how it kind of transforms before your eyes. So that's pretty cool. And I think his wife's, I think she works for a firm that did something for the park. I can't remember, but it was architectural related. So, yeah, for the past couple of years, I've been like, dude, have you stolen the plans yet? No, I can't get in there. Dang it. Can you bribe your wife? No, she won't listen to me, So, yeah. I've been sitting on that for a while. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Yeah, I was just going to say I'm re-listening to Darth Bane again for the bazillionth time.
Oh, good.
Path of Destruction.
You should.
So, I love that freaking book. I really do.
And Bane loves you.
Yes.
I actually downloaded one of Drew's other Old Republic books that kind of ties into the Old Republic online game. Which one?
Darth Main. It's all about.
Might have
his
been
long
Annihilation.
hair.
I can't remember. But anyways, it occurred to me the other day that we hadn't done a Scoundrels book club, and then I was like, well, I know Drew's got a few other books. I should read one of them. So
yeah, sure.
But anyways, all right. Well, that's with that. Why don't we head on over to the news, because we got a lot to talk about.
All right.
Well, we have plenty of news to discuss this week, as I was just saying. So, Jay, what is up first?
All right. Well, item A on our news list this week is while appearing on Jimmy Kimmel Live to promote The Lion King, Jon Favreau revealed that he is writing season 2 of The Mandalorian. While there has been no official announcement of a second season for the upcoming Disney Plus series, Favreau appeared pleased with season 1 and expressed his affection for the Scoundrels of the Galaxy. Also, he was wearing Boba Fett socks, and he said he even shaved his legs for the occasion.
Yeah.
So.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But season 2 already.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw the Mandalorian panel at Star Wars Celebration, and I was quite taken with what that brief amount of footage that we saw there. So I'm excited by this, that things seem to be going well enough that he's confident enough to write a second season. And I'm assuming he's been given some assurances that it'll get greenlit. So anyway.
Yeah, this bodes well because it's almost like, all right, are we going to have like a nice little plot twist at the end of the first season that's we're all going to be like, what? I'm waiting for, now?
Right.
Or, I mean, because you know how sometimes I'll write the first season like, well, it can stand alone by itself. But then you get something that's like really good and, they throw the twist in at the end and it's like, oh, yeah.
Personally, I prefer not to have cliffhangers. I like to have or if they're going to do one, I prefer they do like, we've wrapped up the story of season 1 in season 1, but then kind of like a Marvel post-credit scene, they introduce something that teases what's going to come next as a cliffhanger. Yeah. So that if they're going to do some sort of a cliffhanger, do it more like that. But, this is way premature discussion. But but I'm just glad to know that it seems like we know we've got this. We know we've got the Cassian Andor series, and here we go. There's another series coming up. So
and we have music too.
Yeah.
For The Mandalorian, because he also revealed a sketch of IG-11 that Dave Filoni had drawn on his Instagram account. So that was pretty darn cool.
Yeah,
so revealed that scoring for The Mandalorian is underway.
And he's saying music.
Yes.
So is he the DJ or? Yeah.
Could be. I wish I could just kick out a sketch like that, like Dave does. I mean, that thing is on lined notebook paper, and it. I've seen him do sketches at Celebration, and he just cranks them right on out. I mean, that takes practice, but I've drawn a lot in my life, and I'm not that good. I wish I could. That's pretty cool.
Good. You're pretty good.
That's how robots talk too. By the way, using the red
music
like that. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
It is.
Did you notice that the button that he's sitting right next to says solo? Like the big button says solo right next
down there.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah. That's funny. So, I was going to say...
I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, but...
That one next to it, crumpets?
Crumpets?
Maybe
I think
crumpets?
It's trumpet. Trumpet?
Oh, yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you had like a button like that was aligned to order crumpets. Or other
maybe.
Pastries.
I know. They have those people that cater.
Yeah, they do. They cater to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially to Disney.
Down the labels in the background. Taxus, what else is going on?
Well, for anyone that might have doubted the commitment to The Mandalorian by Disney and Lucasfilm, not that we've really noticed anything, reports have that The Mandalorian costs $15 million per episode, according to a recent article in Forbes. God, I'm a business person too.
I know.
I am the worst business person. As a reminder, The Mandalorian arrives on November 12th with the launch of Disney T.
Plus.
That's what it was. Yes.
Not part of the alphabet.
Yeah. No.
Just the
No. So, how about that? $15 million per episode. I mean, it's probably for catering, right? We saw how they've got a direct line for crumpets.
Right, exactly. But that is quite a lot, actually. I mean, I don't know exactly what budgets are for, things like this, but it seems like 15 million would be a lot.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, I know House of Cards when it first came out on Netflix, so something like 4 million an episode.
Wow. There are a lot of special effects in that one.
Yeah, right. But just think about what we saw in that footage from Celebration again. There's, we had monkey lizards in the street, and they recreated something that looks like it could have been lifted off a world like Tatooine,
Sure.
this grungy city and their stormtroopers. And, they showed us the effects of his ship. And there's a lot going on there in Star Wars. And, I remember seeing shows, not to pick on anything, but I remember like the first season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the agents were out in the field somewhere near a temple. And all of a sudden, the local militia, whatever, comes driving up. And they very cleverly shot the scene. So the agents were always firing at someone who was off screen.
Yeah.
And then they would focus on like a few people firing back again, at them off screen. And so, it was one of those things that probably wouldn't have picked up a few years earlier, but just having seen a lot of recent Marvel movies, whatever, that was them handling a limited amount of budget at the time where,
Right.
you made a small amount of people make appear to be having a bigger battle. 10 men feel like 100, as Cassie Number might say, by the way that they had them staged off screen. That's not what they're doing here with The Mandalorian. I mean, they're going all in. They bring in members of the 501st to play stormtroopers in this movie so that they can have enough to fill out what they need in the scene.
And just start thinking about like all that stuff about, all these people were jumping in and volunteering their time to put this stuff together. They probably have to get paid for that, quote, volunteered time at some point. So there's probably a lot of, like payment in arrears. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's such a heavily unionized, industry. You just can't, say, I mean, at least from what I imagine, you just can't be like, oh yeah, I'd love to help you with this project gratis. You know what I mean?
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, somebody's working in their garage getting paid triple overtime.
Yeah, and then there's IG-11. that's going to be expensive character as well.
Oof, yeah.
Well, I was just looking at while we were discussing, I just Googled the budget for Stranger Things because I thought, okay, well, here's a Netflix original, and it's kind of like, and in 2017 for season 2, it was $8 million an episode, as reported by Variety. So, and that was in 2017.
Huh.
So,
not that long
you're
ago.
looking at, so you're looking at 8 million versus 15 million.
Well, that's some heavy inflationary pressure.
Yeah. But I guess it just does go to show that the budget, they must feel that it's going to be worth it.
Yes.
So, that's good.
All right. Well, we've also got some theme park news. When Galaxy's Edge opened in Disneyland in May, it was without its signature attraction, Rise of the Resistance. Holding to form, Galaxy's Edge will open in Walt Disney World in August, but also without Rise of the Resistance. However, just a few weeks ago, Disney announced that Rise of the Resistance will open on Disney World on December 5th and Disneyland on January 17th. And at the same time, they released the poster for this attraction, which is just awesome. So we got a little bit more detail about the ride, and you're going to get recruited by Rey and General Organa to do a mission for the Resistance. And as you head out in your ship, you get abducted by the First Order and brought to a Star Destroyer for processing. And then somewhere along the line, the Resistance shows up to help you escape, and you take off from there. But, that's really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren apparently is going to play a role in this. We know that there's AT-ATs involved on the ride. They had the ride vehicle at Star Wars Celebration, which was kind of fun to sit in and get your picture taken with. But I'm really eager to check this out sometime, and hoping maybe sometime around Celebration next year I'll get a chance to check it out.
Yeah, and at the end you can star in your own music video singing pop song.
Oh, there you go.
Is that different?
I would. I'm thinking probably so.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's amazing. Of course, Disney's always at the cutting edge of everything. But I mean, just to think that this is a ride, when we were kids, you had, like the Matterhorn and maybe a rickety old wooden roller coaster. But I mean, wow, just to think of this as being a ride, it just blows my mind. And you're right. The poster is absolutely beautiful.
Don't forget about the Tunnel of Love.
Right? I know.
Don't touch the water.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, speaking of Jack.
Not that, I mean, just the water. Ugh, thinking about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
Lots
a gross
of
world
stuff
after all.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Galaxy's Edge is also headed to Europe. Disneyland Paris is getting their own Galaxy's Edge in the near future.
Man, Paris always gets Paris.
Yeah, there there is a catch though. Batuu in Paris will be half the size it is in the US, and it will be without Smuggler's Run. Is that because of the exchange rate?
Yeah. No, it's because they have a limit. That's great. Okay. No, the real issue is more the available land there in Paris. And I don't know if you've all seen any of the concept art for it, but it doesn't even have the Millennium Falcon in the middle of the land. Instead, I think Poe's X-Wing is going to be, well, you know, if you're not going to have Smuggler's Run and the Millennium Falcon ride, you don't have as much of a need to put the Millennium Falcon in the middle of the park. But they are going to have Rise of the Resistance, which is going to be the signature attraction, and it looks like they'll just put Poe's X-Wing in the place of the Falcon. Which,
I mean, yeah, maybe they could make everything like 3/4 scale.
Why would you do that?
So you could fit it all in.
But then you would have a immersion problem from the get-go.
Okay. Maybe there's some storytelling elements involved where everybody suddenly grows bigger.
Well, I don't know. The thing is that these theme parks are built nowadays, and everything that's in them has something of a shelf life before it gets replaced somewhere down the line.
Sure.
And, you know, would you be real surprised if something else at Disneyland Paris eventually made way for Smuggler's Run or some other Stars attraction? No. It's the, they don't have this, but who's to say they don't get an attraction over there in Paris that we don't have over in the United States at some point? So
Sure. Like Star Wars cheese.
There we go. All right.
From
Taxus, what's next?
Well, in news that is animated, also known as animated news, Season 1 of Star Wars Resistance is coming to DVD on August 20th. In addition, the first season was also nominated for an Emmy in the Outstanding Children's Programming category for 2019. So how about that? All right.
Woohoo.
Yeah. So, yeah. Emmy.
So, these episodes, you can buy them for streaming already, but they're coming out on the physical format. But it's only listed for DVD. I haven't been able to find a listing or suggestion. It's also coming out on Blu-ray.
Oh, weird.
Which seems a little odd.
Yeah,
maybe
there's been
cheaper.
a lot of discussion. I don't know. I think it's almost bizarre in a way, because Blu-ray, not that DVD is out like VHS. Boy, all these letters. Wow, it's like alphabet or something.
I know, right?
But but yeah, I mean,
Message.
I've seen a lot of people that have talked about the fact that it's not on Blu-ray and why that is, which it is. It's kind of bizarre.
Maybe there's no discernible quality difference due to the art style.
There might be something to that, Taxus. I mean, that it's not. There are computers involved in the animation of Resistance. It's, you got the hand-drawn 2D look to it, but there's still a fair amount of computer work that goes into it. But with that hand-drawn look, it will translate and get upscaled on a Blu-ray player, especially to like a 4K set, just fine, I think. I don't think there's going to be a lack there. But, to Jay's point, when was the last time you bought a Blu-ray that the DVD didn't come with it? I mean, it's just, it seems like you get one, you get the other. And then typically if you buy the Blu-ray, you get the DVD and a certificate to get it streaming on some pack service someplace as well. So I'm a little surprised that it's just not being listed as for Blu-ray. Last time I was in a Best Buy, I don't even think they sold DVD players. It was Blu-ray players that also played DVDs. So this seems odd, and maybe there's a translation problem somewhere and it will be out on Blu-ray. But anyway, for those of you who don't have Resistance already, digital copy, you'll have this opportunity to get it on a physical medium. But if I'm going to do that, I just as soon have it on Blu-ray and not buy this on DVD and then have to buy it again later.
Yeah, and the packaging's all different sized and stuff too. DVD packages are always bigger. It just looks weird on your library.
For the record, Resistance is not going to be a day one addition to Disney Plus either.
What?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're keeping it on the other Disney?
Yeah, it'll be Disney XD, and you'll be able to get it on demand through most of your cable providers, and then buy the episodes through, say, Amazon or whoever.
See, I was thinking about cable cutting, and that was going to be like the decision point for me, was being able to watch it on Disney Plus. But
well, now you've got a data element for that decision. So
Well, okay, quick question. What about Rebels? Are they going to load Rebels onto Disney Plus right away, or is that something, because I can't remember if we had talked about that or not.
My understanding is it is going to be on Disney Plus, if not day one, very soon thereafter.
Okay, good, because I'm needing to rewatch that.
Yeah, because it's never been available on Netflix. And Clone Wars is not available on Netflix anymore either.
Sadly, no.
What?
Yes.
Nope.
How did that happen? I didn't pay attention.
March, I think.
Yeah, it's been gone for a while.
Oh. No wonder I couldn't find it. Oh, well.
All right. Well, let's finish up the news with some San Diego Comic-Con reveals. Most of the news we got from San Diego Comic-Con had to do with novels and comics. And while I'm not going to get into everything, because they did have a couple panels, a publishing panel, an audiobook panel, and we're going to kind of hit some of the highlights here. A lot of things that were discussed there were things that we already knew, and they had authors that had projects that were released in the past few months that talked about what it was like to write for Star Wars, and there was a lot of discussion of tying in these novels to Galaxy's Edge. So you can check out all these panels, I believe, on StarWars.com. So just head over there. But some of the biggest pieces of news included that Marvel is releasing a 4-issue miniseries later this year, retitled The Rise of Kylo Ren. And Charles Soule is slated as the writer for that one. And he's kind of been describing this as from Ben to Ren. So it's going to talk about how Ben Solo became Kylo Ren. And the teaser image they have for that has Kylo surrounded by the Knights of Ren, which I am all kinds of excited for this book.
Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you. This is like, I mean, it's comics, but I got to get back into my comics. I've been way too far removed from comics. So this is going to be the perfect reason to get back into it.
So the cover I saw was black and white. Like it was
with red
all over. And is that going to be just, how sometimes they'll just release a black and white cover so that if you ever run into, the cover artist or something, then they do it right there. They color it right there for you, at a convention or something. You know what I'm talking about, Dennis?
Yeah.
Was that the intent for this, or is this just,
I think that was just an image. I don't think it was intended as a cover or anything.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm looking at the StarWars.com article, and there's a Rise of Kylo Ren banner, and then there's an image of Kylo with the Knights of Ren in black and white, but it's not a cover. They don't have the issue number and the writers and artists and all that stuff listed on it. It looks like it's a couple different images there.
Gotcha.
So I think that's just the artist's work, and that they're using as a teaser for this thing at the moment.
All right. Cool.
I am so excited for this.
Yeah.
Did you know that the Knights of Ren, their names, they're already established names out there?
It's like the Mickey Mouse Club?
Well, no. No, but there's, because I was doing a search on this earlier today, I Google searched names of the Knights of Ren, and they've been out there. This is not something new. It's not any kind of a spoiler or anything like that, but the ones that we know are, of course, Kylo, Kato, Kane, Zara, Mika, Shiru, and Haru.
Yeah. And Phil.
Yeah.
There's
and
Phil,
Zeppo and Harpo and Groucho.
Oh, yeah.
But
I went to night with a guy named Ren.
But I just thought that was interesting. Had you guys ever known that they all had names?
No, and I'm looking on Wikipedia, and they don't have names from there either. So that's really interesting.
Wow.
That's
job,
the first
Jay.
I heard of it.
So, yeah. I mean, who knows, but that's just, I was looking around. But I was wondering if, because Kylo Ren took on a new name himself. He's no longer Ben Solo. We can save this discussion for another time, but I have all kinds of theories about how he got his name, but we can talk about that another time.
Okay.
Sushi?
Sure.
So a couple other highlights here from the publishing panel. The Tales from Vader's Castle will resume with Return to Vader's Castle. That's an IDW comic series, and these stories will feature Darth Maul, Asajj Ventress, Jabba the Hutt, Darth Vader, and Grand Moff Tarkin. This is written by Kevin Scott, and apparently one of the Grand Moff Tarkin stories will pair him up with Count Dooku. Now, why that is significant is that Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were kind of horror movie royalty
Oh yeah.
back in the day. And I guess I didn't read the Vader's Castle series last year, but one of the stories featured Count Dooku turning into a vampire, of all things.
Cool.
So this might be interesting to see what they do with that. And that's written by Kevin Scott.
Space vampire.
Speaking of him, a print version of Dooku Jedi Lost, which Kevin Scott wrote, will be coming out this November. So we can look forward to that, which will kind of be fun to have. I like the audio performance, but I would like to have a physical copy of that and read through it. Kind of simply for the purpose that there was some of the scenes, especially like the Force visions and things that were happening, and that I think I would get a little more appreciation for if I could read them as opposed to trying to interpret some of the things that were being said through the sound effects.
I can see that.
Yeah. And then we got the cover for the Rise of Skywalker Visual Dictionary, which features one of the Knights of Ren. But up above him was a picture of a new TIE fighter. This one is the TIE Dagger.
Huh.
So instead of having the hexagonal wings, he's got it's triangle-shaped wing with a smaller triangle over a larger one. What did you guys think about this is the TIE Dagger. What did you think about it?
Well, once I got the larger view of this, and you put this in our notes for us, and I saw that the panels were outlined in red, my first inclination or thought was that perhaps these are what the Sith troopers are going to be flying, question mark.
Okay, I can see that.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to get in that cockpit with that armor on, though. That's, I don't know.
Well, maybe there's red armored TIE fighter pilots that fly these as well. We'll see.
Maybe they're neon lights. I don't know.
What,
I kind of like the double wing effect on the little outside wing,
That's what sold it for me, actually. Because with the first, as Jay was kind of suggesting there, when I first saw this, it was just a smaller image, and that thing was the top. And I was like, I don't know about these triangle-shaped wings. But then when I got the bigger shot of it with the overlapping wings on this, I was like, that's actually kind of cool. And then I got to thinking about it more. This is kind of the logical successor to the TIE Interceptor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, because it's almost like an optical illusion. I'm looking at the wing and I'm wondering, is it really sticking out at us, or does it just look like it's sticking out? Or is it actually like funneling outward? You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at the left wing, it's like if you look at it one way, it's like, oh, it's pointing towards us. But then again, if you look at it kind of to where the fuselage connects to the wing, and then just kind of imagine it like going out, it's like, whoa, it's like one of those magic eye puzzles.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I'm looking at it like that, you're absolutely right in like those perspective kinds of paintings, like you said. But
and it's weird how they made it yellow. It looks yellow to me. What color does it look like to you?
I think you're staring at it a little too long.
Okay.
But the one wing, does it look like it's hinged?
Right.
At the one point, and it looks like there's almost a smaller laser fire cannon.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's some way that it's going to hinge downward or outward or upward or something. It's almost like a butterfly in some ways. I don't know.
I like butterflies.
Yeah. No, but I like the looks of it, so I'll be curious to see. They made a big deal about the new, what are they called, the TIE fighters and Rogue One.
The TIE.
Yeah, but the ones that were on Scarif, they made a big deal about those, and really at the end of the day, they performed pretty much the same way the TIE fighters did. But so it was kind of so they introduced a new design for Rogue One. That's cool. No big deal. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if these actually have a particular use, or they just wanted to give Doug Chang something to draw for this movie, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. So, and then the last thing that I wanted to touch on real quick is we got the covers for Marvel's Star Wars Allegiance, which debuts this fall. And what's really cool is if you line them all up, they make one larger cohesive image. Which I don't know. I'm really impressed by this. I like the looks of it. I like the styling of the characters. Now, this is obviously the cover artist and not the artist for the interior. But we don't know too much about the story just yet. But what did y'all think of the covers?
Yeah, you're right. The way that when you put them all together like that, it almost reminds me of the mural, the banner from Celebration.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things I'm thinking of it's just like, it's like the Stormtrooper is the central baddie looking, you know what I mean? It just kind of makes me think if this was back in the day, Vader would have been in the middle. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just that's the only thing that seems weird to me. It's like you've got basically spares as like the focal point in the middle. You know?
Yeah, but that's only when you line up all the covers. I mean, this is not even something that I noticed until I started putting the images together in the notes.
Yeah.
Because on StarWars.com, they're listed one above the next one. And then as soon as I put the first two together, I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's a cohesive image. And
Like a puzzle.
yeah, and I worked really hard to get all four of them in one line so we could see this. But the
Good job.
Good.
thanks. But I'm intrigued by Rey fighting some sort of a monster with her staff on the first cover that's listed. The second issue is dominated by elements of the First Order, and then the third one transitions into some stormtroopers, and then Finn and Poe there, and we have a bunch of TIE fighters below, and then it ends with Rey and some X-Wings and Chewbacca and BB-8. I just like this. It's got an epic scale. It's an epic looking image. It reminds me of, in some ways, they do a lot of Photoshop of elements to make their posters nowadays.
Yeah.
But this is superior to all that.
Yeah.
This is an artist who really hand drew everything. And in some ways, it's kind of got a Drew Struzan.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Look to it.
You should put that out there on the social webs.
I may do that.
Yeah. And plus, I can see a sailboat now if I look at it long enough.
That's your current thing. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's news. Check out Jedi News, Fan the Tracks, The Force Net, Coffee with Kenobi, RetroZap, and StarWars.com for more on these stories. All right, on this week's Hyperthetical Discussion segment, we are discussing a Star Wars novel we had been looking forward to for some time, and that would be Alphabet Squadron by Alexander Freed. So, without getting into any details, what was your overall impression of this book? Did it meet your expectations, Jay?
Well, at first, I'm going to say that, I listened to this book back in June, first of all. So I really had to remind myself of a lot that was going on. I kept having to tell myself, all right, this is just the first in a series. I'm not going to get all my answers. I'm not going to get, everything all at once. So be patient. So that being said, it was, it definitely left me wanting more at the end. And there was just so much to this novel. I mean, it was very convoluted and confusing at times. Like I kept having to push the 30-second back, kind of thing, so that now who are they talking about and what was this again?
Right.
Because there's just so much information. But that being said, I think it's a very, I don't necessarily want to say essential novel, but it's something that gives us some substance between, the time of the Battle of Yavin and where we get to in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
So, and it ties in with, and I didn't even realize this, but it ties in with the Shattered Empire comics. And I completely forgot about that until I was going through some of my collectibles just yesterday, trying to figure out what I wanted to keep and what I was willing to part with. And I was kind of flipping through some of these comics, and I found this, and I'm like, wait, Operation Cinder. Oh my gosh, this is where I heard of this before. So, from that aspect, it was kind of cool to see that there were some overlaps or tie-ins and that type of thing. But till we really get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation, I'll save some of my other opinions and thoughts.
How about you, Taxus?
Yeah, confession time for Taxus. So I woke up this morning and realized, oh no, I forgot to read this book. Luckily, Audible was there to save me with a 3 times fast forward listening mode.
Oh my gosh,
So
you didn't.
Oh, I did. I am so stressed out right now because I was listening to it and working. And it's like, oh my gosh, just splitting my brain power. But no, it's so it's really fresh in my mind. But Jay, you're right about that. Sometimes I had to go back and go, wait a minute, who is this they're talking about? And where it really got confusing was the Riot and Hound Squad scenes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And where it's kind of jumping through all these different characters, you know? Now this book, I mean, this book's basically a role-playing game book. There's nothing wrong with that. I like those. You know what I mean? You're setting everybody up. You're kind of giving them a little bit of backstory. You're bringing these people together. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I felt like the scenes, the descriptions of the battles and all that stuff worked really well. I guess where, I kind of felt like this was Aftermath 2, like it kind of had that feel to it a little bit, there was something I figured out pretty quickly in the book too. And other than that, I enjoyed it. It was a fun listen. And I have to say, I think I probably enjoyed it more because of the sound effects and the music and such like that, which I just might go audiobook from now on. There, I said it.
Yeah, it definitely was a bit fresh with the music choices and the sound effects. They didn't recycle all the ones that we've come to expect from a lot of the Star Wars books. But I'll be upfront. This was average for me. And I came to realization after reading the end of this, when I got to the end of this book, that I've been disappointed by a lot of Star Wars novels recently, and that may be a harsh word. A lot of books, in the past was given a lot of books an A. They felt like Star Wars. They had the Star Wars feel. This was a very gritty book. This almost to me seemed much more like a military book than it did a Star Wars book, and it really dove into the psyche of warriors and soldiers and things like that, as opposed to contemplations on the Force or people being devoted to their cause. A lot of these pilots were there because they're almost coerced into the situation. Yeah. So I guess we'll go ahead and cross over into some of the details here. But if you aren't aware, just a brief synopsis about this, there's the 204th fighter wing for the Empire is known as Shadow Wing, and they are a threat to the hyperspace lanes. And so there is an Imperial intelligence officer named Care Aiden who wants to prove the value of intelligence and the Army by putting together a unit that's going to take them down. And so he recruits Lieutenant Yurika Quell, who is a former Imperial who defected to the rebellion, to lead the squad. As the title of the book suggests, the squad gets filled up with an X-Wing, a Y-Wing, an A-Wing, a B-Wing, and a U-Wing for no other reason than that's the ships they could get. Sure. And so then they go about their business of learning everything they can about Shadow Squad, of which Yurika used to belong to, and then they come up with a plan to take her and or to take Shadow Wing and the base that they have set up down. So Yurika is kind of a complex character, to say the least. We are, and this is a full spoiler discussion. I guess we should get that out of the way. We're not going to pull any punches here, but she starts the book off in the Traitor's Remorse camp as she's being processed by the New Republic. Okay, touching on Traitor's Remorse, that was one heck of a desolate place. Yeah. I mean, getting back to the real-world gritty feel of this, it becomes a target for terrorist bombings because it's viewed as a place for traitors. And so you get some Imperial loyalists that go there to kill everybody. What did you all think about this feel? I mean, this is where Star Wars seems to be going. They're taking much more of a modern day feel when they're telling their books as opposed to the sentiment that we had back in 1977, a simpler time, I suppose. But do you like this tone, or do you miss kind of that old Star Wars feel?
Well, I have to say, for me, I appreciate it because I know, like you said, in the old days, in 1977 and in 1983, when we blew up both the Death Stars, you kind of had this feeling like, oh, it's over. You know what I'm saying? And even in the special editions, you see the statue of Palpatine crashing down, and there's celebrations, and then it's over. But the reality of it is no, it's not. There's a lot of messy stuff that's going on afterwards on both sides. And there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of remorse, and there's a lot of sort of this in between. And I think that's what Traitor's Remorse kind of is. It's almost like this netherworld, so to speak, for, a lot of these combatants and these, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's very realistic. Would I have been ready for it back in the day when I was like 13 years old after Return of the Jedi? No. But it is the reality of it. And that is one thing I must say that I also appreciate about Alexander Freed's writing in general, is that and you said it delves into the psyche of the characters. And I love that. I really, really do. And we were texting earlier today, and I said, did he do something in Fact Pav, from a certain point of view? And I actually went back and looked at that, and not to spend too much time on it, but he was the one that wrote the story about Mon Mothma and her feelings about, being a failure to the rebellion and giving up, and she was feeling guilty and, and all of these other things. So I was like, oh, that's why I love that story so much. You're pulling back the curtain of reality, and you're taking a look at, what is really going on with these people, because there's a lot of guilt. Right. There's a lot of PTSD. There's a lot of remorse, there's like Traitor's Remorse, Yeah, there's all those letters again. Boy, this is like alphabet soup. It's not even, but that was definitely one thing that I actually did enjoy, was getting to see the reality and the nitty gritty, and that there are heroes on both sides, no matter how you slice it.
Taxus, what is your feeling on that?
Well, I love a good prison camp, so I felt right at home with the scenery. It's just the reality of things, and I really liked how it kind of set up her watching the troops get off, the new prisoners, the new batch. And there's just the remark that, hey, the fewer or the farther and farther we go to where we're bringing these guys here, the less and less likely are they came here of their own volition, which is just the hard truth, you know what I mean? And that's when you start kind of ramping up the fact that somebody, blew something up there, I didn't really feel like everybody there was in a state of, I guess, what would you say? Like, it's a kind of like despair, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, woe is me. It's sort of like they were like, wow, the Republic's really kind of being cool with us, you know what I mean? And they're kind of helping new people get acclimated to the camp when they arrive there. There was a special note on that one. I kind of
dispute that, because there was a black market going on and people just kind of piling up everywhere they could.
Well, I'm just saying they go into, but she goes into the bunker that later gets hit and sees the stormtrooper there, the one, and there's people in there playing cards, somehow they're smuggling in some good hooch, and I seem to remember there was some joking and stuff going on around there, but that's the kind of stuff that you would expect to find out. But it's not like everybody's standing around, having to dig ditches and everything, or they'll be shot. Well,
right. It was a processing camp more than it was a prison camp. But, I don't want to get too bogged down in this. I guess, for me, Star Wars was always an adventure, and it was always kind of an escape. And you're right, Jay. I mean, the Star Wars of the 80s is not reality, but it's Star Wars. It never was supposed to be reality. It was supposed to be space fantasy, space opera. Mm-hmm. And then when it gets, to me, this just bogs down, and I'm not particularly fond of any of the characters besides Hera that was in this book. There was a lot of time. Now, it's not fair. They've all been through horrific experiences, but there's a lot of time I wanted to shake them by the shoulder and was like, come on, snap out of it. This is getting ridiculous. But we'll kind of get into that as we discuss some of them here. I guess the last thing I'll say on that topic, though, is that I feel like when this book was announced and the discussion, it sounded like it was going to be much more of the classic adventure than what it turned out to be. Alexander Freed is great at writing the military story, but his Star Wars style is not particularly setting well with me. I thought his novelization of Rogue One was fantastic, but that Rogue One's kind of where I draw the line on where I want the realism in Star Wars and the angst that comes with being in this war, being affected by the war. But that's a longer discussion for later. So let's kind of talk about the rest of the squad. As I mentioned earlier, Karen Aiden is the intelligence agent that put together this whole thing. He's Irika's handler. He's a male Balasar, and if you don't know what those are, think of, you want to buy a death stick?
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Where was everybody getting the death sticks from, right? Yeah.
From Attack of the Clones. He's got his own troubled past. He was an innocent, not really involved in the war until he got arrested by the Empire and held for no good reason. Chasna Chaddock, who is a Thelan. You can think of one of the dancers from the bonus scenes and the special edition that was added in Jabba's palace.
Feeling all right.
She flies the B-wing. She was originally a pilot with the Cavern Angels on Jeddah, so I guess she was a Saw on the Partisans at some point. Then we have Karos. We don't know exactly what she is. Her species is kind of new, but she's going through some sort of metamorphosis. She's the U-wing pilot, and she's already working with Karen Aiden when the book starts. Will Lark is our pilot for the A-wing. Idealist is not the right word, but he is a bit more upbeat than the rest of them, but he does have a craving to get home. And then the last pilot in the squad is Nath Tinson, and he flies the Y-wing. He's another former Imperial that defected, and then everyone in his squadron except for him was ambushed and killed by shadowing, and so now he's got a revenge motivation. He's also a bit of a mercenary as well, and Karn pays him to join Alphabet Squadron and keep tabs on Irika. So did any one of these characters stand out to you? Did you have a special affinity for any of these other than any of the members of the squad?
Taxus, you want to take this one first?
Well, I kind of liked the weird metamorpho one, Kairos. I was like, wait a minute, was that her race, or was that? And it took me a little while to figure out that was her name. Again, listening to it, but yeah, she was creepy, and she ended up, I don't know, she must have had some sort of weird powers, or maybe it was just some sort of weapon or something. Because later, she gets into a fight, in the streets, and a bunch of stormtroopers that are dressed in civilian garb trying to do something, and she puts her hand on their heads or whatever, and smoke does something terrible to their heads. You know what I mean? So I wasn't sure if it was some sort of latent, supernatural ability, or if it was a weapon she had there or not. But yeah, she was pretty cool. And I guess Nath was the other one I really liked. And the main character, Irika, I really liked her. I thought she was a complicated character.
That's an understatement. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's no big surprise. Nath's entire squadron got killed because they were all flying Y-wings. But.
Right. Okay. How about you, Jay?
Yeah, for me, I just about Kairos, what you were talking about. I feel like she could be potentially force sensitive, but I feel like she probably was hurt or maybe even badly burned or something of that nature, because maybe even her vocal cords were damaged. That's why she's so covered and she's wrapped up and. And she may not be, but the one line that she says in the temple gave me chills, where she said, "The Emperor's shadow is long." And that's the only thing that she said. And it was whoa, okay, that just gave me the chills.
Yeah.
But I dug Chas. I thought she was awesome. And it's funny because Kevin Scott was just tweeting earlier today and wanted to know, what your favorite almost human or non-human species was, and I said I'd love to see more of the lean. So I love the fact that she's just this punk rock chick, and she loves to listen to loud music, kind of a loose cannon, but she's pretty cool. Will Will, I just wanted to take him under my wing. He reminded me a lot in some ways of my own two boys. His upbringing reminded me of the Hunger Games, where they chose people from their planet or from different places on the planet to do different things. And he flew that, I can't remember the name of it, but it was some kind of like a flying, almost like an avatar kind of thing,
Yeah, it was a big bird. It was a big bird.
Yeah, but that was pretty cool. And so those are the ones that probably stood out to me most. And as far as Irka goes, I know that we kind of rolled around the idea, and it's been said several times, she's similar to Iden Versio. She actually reminds me more of Jassy Mari from the Aftermath series than she does Iden.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can see that. The, for me, I'm just be upfront. I'm not particularly fond of any of these characters. We're inside their heads too much on this. Again, for me, it's Star Wars is about the adventure, and this book bogs down with what they are thinking. When it came to Chastina Chaddock, I loved that she flew this B-wing, and she was very arrogant about it. She was calling the members of Riot Squadron cowards. Them in their A-wings or whatever. She had this attitude that being in the B-wing was where it was at, and she really liked unleashing damage there at that final battle at Panem Nai. But then she almost seems suicidal, which is I'm in this battle and I'm either winning the battle or you're killing me. It's not discretion is the better part of valor, and that, the rebellion might need her for another day. And then, she had this issue with Will because when things went south at the Hellions Dare, he basically took out her cannons, so she had no chance to fight and forced her to flee. And she was very on point about, you took away my agency, which is what he did, but that was a very weird way of talking about it, I thought. It was agency is as much a literary term as it is a term you would use in talking to somebody. So I kind of struggled with that a little bit, but moving past the members of the squad, and let me tell you, I just didn't like Nath at all. He had so much potential, but he just aggravated me on multiple, and maybe that's the effect he was supposed to have, in which case, well done. But I just want to talk about some of the parts of the book that stand out to me. There was this cat and mouse game going on early in the book where Shadow Wing was trying to chase down the Hellions Dare, which was a Republic ship in which Hound Squadron and Riot Squadron were serving, and so both Chas and Will were stationed on there. I love that part of the story. I love that they had this, the Hellions Dare would jump into hyperspace, come out, they'd start doing repairs and getting the fighters ready to go. They would have suffered some losses, and then Shadow Wing would show up again because they would have isolated one of the Republic ships and got the hyperspace coordinates from them.
Yeah,
something
they called like tapping the bantha.
I don't remember what they called it, but they just, I love that scene. And then it's like, this is a great way of setting it up. You got motivation for these characters, but then at the end, they all had to be kind of coerced into joining the squadron. But what was a standout scene for y'all?
Well, not necessarily a scene in general. One is the temple. I thought that was really cool, where they found that old like Jedi temple, and they got to see that kind of star show, on the inside while they were there. So that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah.
And again, that's where we get the one and only basically line that Cairo says in the entire book. And I just really, I liked the fact that we have an Imperial torture droid as a therapist.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, as a medical droid and therapist.
Yeah, and I get it. It's like K2. It's reprogrammed, but still, that's just kind of ironic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Taxus?
I'd have to say my favorite scene is when Will, which really wasn't one of my favorite characters because I kind of felt like he was a little ineffective, but he wasn't really. He's sort of like Ross from Friends. You know what I mean? It's like if you really want to come away and say, Ross, ugh. But then when you think about it, wow, he's kind of really a needed character, you know? So that's kind of how I felt about him. But I think when he, like, they're basically the enemy cruiser, the same scene where they're chasing down the Dare, and they're in the basically the carrier, if you remember, it was like the thing we saw in Rebels, you know? And the Dare squadrons had been able to knock out its engines and stuff, so they were stuck in space there. And then they were basically did the same thing to the Dare. You know, it's everybody's flying around kind of in protective, you know, zone around their capital ships. And so Will kind of throws out the feelers in an open mic channel to the 204, you know, like, hey, do you guys have any stories? You know, and it starts out like, you know, you kind of feel like, oh, wow, somebody's really telling him a story. And then it just goes really dark. Like, you know, yeah, so you guys shouldn't be here, and you're going to be digested by this giant space being that we're in right now, according to these legends. You know what I mean? And there's by the guy they call Blink, because he only had one cannon that fired. That was the other great element, is that they got to know.
Oh, yeah.
Learn who each of them were and their own styles and stuff over how many days and maybe weeks they were playing cat and mouse with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that part too. Again, that was part of that whole Hellions Dare cat and mouse scene. Let's kind of take a look towards the end of the book. You know, they finally, after a lot of problems getting the squadron to act in a cohesive unit, which, come on, when two of them are angry, one's angry at one because he didn't let her kill herself in battle, one's being brought along simply as a mercenary, one is a squad leader that is a former Imperial that kind of holds everyone in contempt because they don't have Imperial discipline, and then one doesn't really talk. I mean, go figure, they aren't going to have they're going to have problems getting along.
Right.
But when they finally get things together and they're going to make this attack on Pandem Nye, where they believe they can take out Shadow Wing, there were some unique situations there. It's a world that's got a lot of Tabana gas, and so they have to be careful. They can't bring in the capital ships and bombard the planet because it'll ignite gas and kill everybody. So they came up with a very complicated plan to defeat Shadow Squadron there. Did you like the climactic battle? What did you think of it?
I think it served its purpose. And, you know, when you're sitting here talking about all these different personalities and things, I think of my classroom, quite honestly. And, you know, the one that brought them all together was Hera.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, yeah, I mean, the battle in and of itself, I think Alexander Freed did a good job of explaining what was going on. You know, and it went really fast. Yeah. You know, it was, you could really visualize everything that was going on. Yeah. 3 times as fast as usual. But, I mean, overall, like I said, it served its purpose. I don't know, you know, again, this is only the first book in a trilogy, so I wasn't putting too much on it as the quote unquote climax of the book, as far as, you know, just kind of setting up something to happen later on.
Yeah. You know, first off, I'm putting my home on that planet immediately up for sale, deep discount. I just don't feel safe living in a place where, oh, hey, don't throw that cigarette over there. Boom, everybody's dead. You know, I mean, it just kind of seemed like a weird kind of setup for an easy death of an entire planet, you know? Which, that's fine. That's fine, because we just got through the Cinder thing, but it's like, wow, what happens if a comet just kind of makes it a little too, or I'm sorry, a meteorite makes it through the atmosphere? You know, what's going to happen then? You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Freed went to great pains to explain that, you know, the average starfighter was not going to set off the gas. Sure. That it really was going to take a bombardment from a capital ship in order to do that. And then, unfortunately, the attacks that they had set up and the improvisation that they ended up having to do is what started the potential chain reaction of causing the entire atmosphere to go up in flames. And so what started off as an attack on this Imperial base became a rescue mission for the civilians that lived on the planet below. I guess this is a book where I had certain expectations coming in, and those expectations were not met. And not to say that the book was doing what I expected to do and it just didn't do it well. It's that the book is not doing what I expected it to do. And when you have a situation where one squadron is put together to take out another squadron, I expected this book to kind of end with those squadrons facing off. Instead, Alphabet Squadron went in with a very surgical attack on this base where they were going to try and destroy hangars and keep Shadow Squadron from getting out, and they were going to take them that way. That's not the way things worked out. So I was a little disappointed by that. I kind of felt like Freed, if the psychological aspect of the book, if that type of story, getting in the heads is your thing, then I'm probably pretty happy with this, because he spent a lot of time on there, and he got into their minds and their concerns and their worries. And
it's kind of like BioWare. But that's where he's from. You know what I mean? How BioWare's games are really, really geared to that. The whole,
Sure, but here's the difference. Here's the key difference. In those BioWare games, you get great action sequences that come as well.
Yeah.
I felt like the fights and this Pandem Nye scene, that disappointed me. You would expect a crisper pace to this battle, and it just wasn't there. Huh. It was, there was a lot of explanation about what the maneuvers were, and a lot of discussion about what was happening. And, for something that's supposed to be a space battle, that's fast action, and we just weren't getting that in this book. Mm-hmm. But so, that was kind of disappointed with it. But, I was fine with it turning into this rescue operation, but I would have liked to have seen Alphabet Squadron and Shadow Wing face off a bit more. That was the climax we were getting teased this entire book. And, and that's fine if they're saving that for a later day, but I expected something a bit bolder for a climax of this novel, because each one of these books does have to stand on its own. They are a trilogy and they tell a greater story, but each one of them should have a story that has a bold climax to it. And I don't know, I just kind of felt that was missing. But enough of me complaining. Let's kind of touch on a few other things. One of the things that did stand out from this book that I really did like was Colonel Shakara Naras. She was in charge of the Shadow Wing, the 204th. I kind of liked this personality that she had. She came up through the Clone Wars, and to her, there was no difference between the Separatists and the Rebellion. And so she was frequently calling the rebels Separatists. Separatists, Rebellion, New Republic, they're all the same thing. And I just kind of like that old world military attitude that she had. Yeah. But, what's something else that stood out to you guys from the novel?
I'll agree with you on grandmother, as they called her. And again, she's one of those that she's been with the Empire forever. She's been an Imperial forever. And that's what she sees as right. And she's going to do whatever it takes to preserve that. For me, the other thing that stands out is definitely Hera and her appearance. And I know, for anybody that is looking for Hera, you're not going to find her until maybe like halfway to
Part 2
through
of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, like Act 2, 2.5 to 3/4. But I do feel that Alexander Freed did do a good job of preserving her character. And being true to her character in terms of what she would do in different situations and what she would say and how she would act and react. So I did appreciate that a lot. I was kind of waiting for her to make some sort of reference to Jason, perhaps, but we didn't get that. But maybe we'll get that later on too. I don't think we've seen the last of Hera in these novels either.
Yeah, Rebellion's got a really good daycare plan. I'm sorry, the Republic. I'd say the temple scene really stood out to me as far as something that was fun and but I felt like, okay, was there something more to this? Did this connect in with anything that we've seen before in the past? I can't remember the planet's name, but was there? And then I was trying to decipher the light show. Like it's showing the galaxy. What was the point of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was almost kind of a world between worlds kind of thing.
Yeah.
Remind me a lot of like Lothal, but
like time. It showing like the galaxy as it was, as it is, and something like that. I don't know.
Well, I just took the point to be that there's a lot of these little places in the galaxy and the universe where the Jedi did study, and that there are these central points of power, I guess you could say, where the Force kind of pulls itself inward.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know.
Maybe we'll see more of it. I don't know. I didn't catch the planet's name, to be honest with you. So I'd kind of like to go back and figure that out and see if there's anything out there about it. But something else I thought was kind of a cool little element was how what's his what's his name? Nath. Thank you. How he's telling Erica, let's see, you're younger than me, but old enough to remember, Galactic History Volume 2 or whatever, and he's basically explaining how the Empire is sort of doing a Orwellian kind of write out of the Jedi, in the history, and, where he says, it just doesn't make sense that this group, because, your history is that they were just small and, not really doing too much, and we didn't really have to, worry about them. They're ineffective, whatever. But, if you gotta ask yourself, then how come they were the ones that tried to assassinate the Emperor? You know what I mean? Or the Chancellor at the time. So I kind of liked that, how he was kind of pointing out that, the rewriting of history to suit the Empire's needs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you got that wrong. But one of the things about Nath that it kind of bugged me, and that is that his when he defected with his squad to the rebellion, they got ambushed by Shadow Wing, and then Shadow Wing and wiped everyone but him out. And so the part of his motivation, in addition to getting paid, was that he wanted revenge on Shadow Wing. And he basically tells Erica that, well, if I can't get revenge on anyone that's currently in that squadron, I'll have to settle for killing you.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, how can this be a cohesive unit when one of the pilots is willing to kill the leader of the squadron, and everyone's just going along with this? That bugged me quite a bit. As did some of, and I know we're supposed to talk about things we like, but I'm on a roll here. Give me a breath. I also felt that Erica, there was some sort of mental block she had about, Hera kept giving her this advice. I agree with you, Jay. Hera was really one of the best parts of this book. I thought Alexander Free did a great job with that character. As I usually do, I read/listened to this using WhisperSync, so I was reading some of it on Kindle and listening to other parts of it on Audible. And the narrator, I can't remember what her name is, but she did a really great job with Hera's voice. And so they really captured the spirit of Hera. And in some ways, she kind of seemed like she was out of place in this book, given all the other characters. But Hera had given Erica this advice that, does your squadron know what you're willing to do for them? That, that you've got their backs and stuff like that. And Erica had no clue how to demonstrate that. Or she did, and she willfully did the wrong thing. Right. Over and over and over again. She kind of seemed to believe that I need to prove, I'll put myself out there on the line without their backup unnecessarily. It was just against crazy odds. And I'm like, this is foolish. This is not showing that you've got their back. Showing them they got your backs is like, sticking up for them, which she did at one point when they were getting dressed down by Karen in the hangar. And then she finally got the idea of getting the squadron tattoo on her bicep and having that logo painted on everyone's ship. That's like the leadership stuff, but it seemed like she made some really bizarre decisions before she could get to that point, which seemed a little, I don't know what the right word is. That just didn't seem right.
Yeah. Maybe they're growing pains. I guess you could write that off like she was trying to kind of figure it out, along the way. And even at the end of the book, she leaves them, right? And that doesn't really seem like, okay, why would you do that if this is your unit or your home now? But I felt like, okay, if we're going with with her character and with Nath, I thought she was going to be revealed as one of the pilots who wiped out his unit, or his squadron. Right. So at the end, when he's got the gun on Grandma and he's forcing her to, show me all the records, and she's pulling them up. And basically everybody that was involved in destroying his unit had already died. I thought that was kind of neat, he's desperately trying to find some outlet for vengeance at this point, and finally takes it out on the colonel because he's like, well, who gave the order? And she's like, well, I did. You know what I mean? And boom. But I'm glad that she wasn't listed as one of the provocateurs, you might say. In that, I thought that would have been a little too easy, you know?
Right.
And also, I like the interactions with her and ITO a lot, you know? I felt like that back and forth was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that kind of gets me into one of the last things I want to talk about here. You know, the big twist that comes with the Erica is that, well, there's two elements I want to cover here. We'll go ahead and get Erica out of the way first. So she defected, but it's not, you know, she had this backstory where she explained to Major Soren Keyes, who was her commander in Shadow Wing, that her original intent was to join the Imperial Naval Academy and then eventually defect to the rebellion, that she kind of shared the rebellion's ideals. But along the way, it was her camaraderie with her wingmates is what kept her going. That was her family. She didn't have an opportunity to defect to the rebellion, so she bought in further and further into what the Empire was selling until Operation Cinder came along, and she and her squadron were ordered to participate in the destruction of Necronus. And they basically stoked the storms and everything that happened on that planet and wiped out the planet. You know, they wiped out all life on the planet. That was part of Operation Cinder. You get the impression from the beginning of the book that she's trying to escape from that responsibility. But in truth, she was one of the primary pilots that carried out Necronus.
Yeah.
Her hands are, you know, she's up to her elbows in blood with Necronus. And the rebellion doesn't really know that. Karen Aiden knows that now. So, you know, that's the big twist with her, which we know is going to come up again in the second or third book of this trilogy. So there's that going for it. But then I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Galactic Wanderer, Devin, who shows up from time to time. And we know that name is a pseudonym and, you know, something's going on. And it's only at the very end of the book that we find out that is actually Major Soren Keyes, that once the Battle of Endor was over, he didn't really see anything worth supporting, so he went AWOL from the Empire, and he was just trying to make a way for himself, but then he was going from planet to planet and then writing, you know, petty injustices or taking care of criminal organizations and trying to make things better. But then when two Republic intelligence agents come after him, he kills them and vows to go back to the Empire and take the fight back to the Republic. What did you think of his character in that storyline?
Well, you know, yeah, he was definitely this like mercenary that was, like you said, wandering. He's going to be, I think, where it leaves off is there's no doubt of who's going to kind of be the villain in the next one, I guess you could say, or at least one of the focuses that book's going to take. So I don't know. He's a really loose cannon.
Yeah, he's intriguing. You know, as an antagonist, he seems to be one of these Imperials that supports him, that in quote supports the Empire for the right reason. That for the order and bringing justice to the galaxy. Overlooking the atrocities that Palpatine and some of the, the upper echelon of the Imperials commit. But what did you think about that, Taxus?
Well, I thought it was kind of odd. I mean, at first, I thought he was one of the ones that was chasing her in the very beginning. Which, did that really happen?
Yeah, but she was mainly escaping from the storm, and there's other TIE fighters in pursuit.
And the captain, right? Wasn't the
right? But Major Keyes is the one that convinced her that she didn't belong in the Empire anymore, and convinced her to leave. Right.
Yeah. So he found her on the ground afterwards and told her to do that, and so it, I thought that was kind of neat. That was kind of a different take, on the character. I kind of figured out it was him, like, from the moment his story popped up. You know what I mean?
I was very surprised, to be honest with you.
I was like, well, why would they have this guy doing this? You know what I mean? It's obviously got to be somebody significant, and it's probably that Major, and I don't know. It's just kind of course, it's running together in my head. It was either the very first time or after I heard about the Major. I can't remember which one cued me. I can't remember where he was brought up at exactly, but But yeah, I thought he was a cool character. I'm looking forward. I think you are going to get that big starfighter battle that you're talking about in the future, with him, helming things up.
Okay. Well, we're about out of time for this discussion, so why don't we go around the table, offer a final thought if you want, and, as was our tradition, kind of give it a grade. But Jay, we'll start with you.
All right. Like I said, as far as is this an essential novel? Definitely not. Is it something that I would suggest someone to read? Maybe. I had to work really hard. I'll be honest. I had to work really, really hard to keep track of what was going on, who was who, what was what. And so, from that aspect, I much rather would just be entertained. And yes, I like things that are thought-provoking. Don't get me wrong. And I like things that challenge my current notions of what I understand in Star Wars. And I like new characters. But, again, that being said, this was just like you said, Dennis, it was just kind of average for me. I'm glad that I revisited it again a little bit before we recorded tonight to kind of refresh my memory, because there were definitely some very shining moments in this. And one that we did not mention that I thought was really cool was when Chas was talking about the fact that she actually met Jen Erso.
Oh yeah.
And so I was really happy to see some of those ties in there as well. And of course, seeing Hera. So overall, I'm going to give it a C.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was, of course, listening to it, I think probably feels different than reading it. Some really cool elements in it. The Emperor droid that goes and visits the Colonel and tells her, Operation Cinder and all that stuff. It's just sitting in that ready room, or her personal room or wherever. And she keeps going to it, almost begging it to tell her what to do, and just nothing's happening, And then at the end, though, when she dies in front of it, realizing that, yeah, she probably did the wrong thing. You know what I mean? That this was a futile thing. It just gets up and leaves. It's like, okay, where's it going? What's it doing now? That was kind of a cool element. So it was little things like that really kind of stood out to me in the book. The other two are coming up. I guess you don't really have to read this one to get those, maybe, but you might as well. I'll give it a B-.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Jay. This is a C book for me. I'm hoping that the novels kind of steer back to the Star Wars adventure spirit, and it's Alexander Freed is good as what he does, and this is kind of the same comment that I'll make about E.K. Johnston. If you're in it for the, for what it is there, then this is a good book. But it's not to my taste. I was expecting something a bit more in the spirit of Rogue Squadron, perhaps, and this just didn't feel like that. It's because I think the book got too caught up in these characters. Their inability to get along, their other motivations, Yurika's struggles with accepting this responsibility, and I wanted more adventure. I wanted more of the cat and mouse game with that we got at the beginning of the book between the Hellions Dare and Shadowwing. I wanted that to continue with Alphabet Squadron and Shadowwing, and we just didn't kind of get that. Now I know there's 2 more books to come, but I'll probably read this book again before the next one comes out, just as a refresher, but I'm not eager to do so. But maybe with my expectations properly adjusted, next time I'll enjoy it more. We'll see. But yeah, this is a C book for me. Star Wars has been a bit uneven with their novels. I will say this as a final comment. They're doing the TIE Fighter series right now. That's a tie-in to this. Major Soren Keyes is in it. Grandmother's in it. There's a lot of pilots that get referenced in this book that are in that one, and it focuses on Shadowwing. And I'm enjoying that story a whole lot more. It's maybe because it's the comic format and we aren't getting so deep into all the characters' heads there, that we're being shown and not told what it is that they're thinking and what they're going through. And we're getting the facial expressions in a picture as opposed to 3 paragraphs of a discussion of what it is they're thinking. And so it's got a better pace and it's moving along. I have my criticisms of that series as well, but I'm liking that better. If you want some TIE Fighter versus Rebellion action, maybe check that comic series out. I highly recommend it. But anyway, well, Scoundrels, of course, we want to know what you think. And at the end of the show, we'll give you our social media links. And so drop us a line and give us your thoughts on Alphabet Squadron. If you loved it, if you hated it, if we got our discussion all wrong, we want to know.
Is Star Wars really in a galaxy far, far away? Or are we living it right here, right now? On the Beltway Banthas podcast, host Stephen Kent explores these questions to give fans a larger view of the Force. The politics of Star Wars are there for anyone who wants to engage them. Check out Beltway Banthas, subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, and join a community of people who love Star Wars, relish politics, and have fun blending the two. The Beltway Banthas podcast for Star Wars, politics, and more. Brought to you by the RetroZap Podcast Network.
It's time for...
Silence, fools!
Okay, so first I want to thank both Day and J.W. Englehart for the responses to episode 83 over on Discord.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, that is a fun place to hang out, even if you don't spend much time in the Starship Sabers and Scoundrels channel. We did have a bit of discussion about Alphabet Squadron there, and there's also a lot of good discussion over in the Star Wars lore channel on the RetroZap Discord server. And the conversation's been kicking up about the Thrawn Treason book that we were talking about back at the beginning of the show. So head on over there and join us. It's been fun. But Jay, I know you've had some responses over on Instagram that we wanted to discuss.
Yes, and thank you to everyone that is engaging with us over there on Instagram. So this one's from Mike Tarkin. Hello, Mike Tarkin.
Hey.
In response to our hypothetical discussion last episode about the Death Star battles, and he said, the space battle in Jedi wins overall for me, but as far as trench runs, I give it to A New Hope because of that music and the fact that it feels like the Rebels might not make it. In Jedi, it feels more like we're going to win once the shield is taken down. And I think we had discussed that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And then from Junker Jawa, in response to our post about the upcoming The Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary, and well, it wasn't Kylo Ren's appearance, it was a Knight of Ren on the cover. He said, is that the Gardener of Ren? Which was kind of cute. So the implement that he was, wielding there.
Is it a
and
hoe?
Then
Was it a hoe?
Was it a hoe? I don't know.
No.
Guess we'll have to find out.
Right.
And then our good friend Hector Rios, in reaction to the Orabesh Scrabble tiles, said, whoa, need now. So I directed him over to Etsy. So
cool.
If you got those, Hector, you'll have to let us know. So thanks,
Definitely.
everybody.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, Scoundrels, we want to hear from you. We put all of our good responses, whether it's email, Twitter, iTunes reviews, anything. They come here in Silence Full. So drop us a line. Let us know what you think. All right. Well, that's about going to do it for episode 84. Before we go, tell Scoundrel Nations what you two have coming up this week.
Well, for me, you can always find me right here on Starship Sabers and Scoundrels. And I'm gathering some new items for the next That's So Wizard. I did receive a couple of items from a very, very generous benefactor who shall remain, I should say, nameless. And you can always check out my archived fashion blogs and other ideas over on Coffee with Kenobi and Four Worlds Couture. So check those out as well.
Yeah. And for some reason I'm bleeding, but not bad. Just gonna do this right here.
Goodness.
That's weird. Yeah, I must have cut myself. Anyway, besides me bleeding, you can find me on, I have to say, unfortunately, on the final episode of The Geek Supreme with Scott Murray, Regina Davison, Jeff McKee. It's a little sad for me. I don't really know how to say it, but it's just, life gets a little too busy, and it's really hard fitting in a lot of different things, and I just didn't want to suffer just from my inability to really allocate as much time and resources to it as it should. But you can find them all on still anything over there on the Assembly Geeks Network. Crimson Crane Season 2 is coming out. Comic Book Noob is really a fun listen, so I recommend that. That's with Regina and Scott, and I think
Matt Moore.
Matt Moore. And then, Jeff's got a really fun Saturday morning cartoon episode or podcast that kind of takes you way back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We couldn't wait to get up, pour yourself a bowl of cereal because Mom and Dad were still sleeping off their hangover, and, fire up the old boob tube for a good few hours of just brainless fun. So, yeah, go check that out.
All right. Well, all good things must come to an end. But you can find my recent comic reviews covering Star Wars comics over on RetroZap. You can also find my comic discussion with Jovial J each month over on Jedi Journals. And my wife Beth and I are talking Star Trek on Warp Trails. We just recorded a discussion of all the Star Trek news about Card and Season 3 Discovery and the animated series Lord Dex that we got from San Diego Comic-Con. So you can look for that pretty quickly here if it's not out already. And that is exclusively over on the RetroZap feed. Scoundrels, thank you for listening and for your support. If you've enjoyed the show, this has been Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and we would love it if you would take 1 minute to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts, especially Apple Podcasts. On the other hand, if you didn't enjoy this, don't send us to Trader's Remorse. For one thing, Jay and I aren't Imperials. And second, Taxus is way too obvious a target. But in all seriousness, if you aren't already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We are more places than ever. iHeartRadio being one of the most current. Have a friend that's interested in Star Wars, please tell them about our show and help them find it on their mobile device. Word of mouth is the best way to help the Scoundrel Nation grow. Thanks to everyone that's been helping us spread the word on social media.
And speaking of social media, Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels can be followed on Twitter and Instagram at SQ'dPod and liked on Facebook, where we are facebook.com/SQ'dPod. If you want to follow Darth Taxus on Twitter, he is at Darth Taxus. Dennis is at DJKVER2. Boy, that's a lot of letters. And I am at Joyce Krebs. Don't forget about our page on the RetroZap Discord server. We'll be there talking about novels, comics, and everything Star Wars. You can find links to that in our show notes and on our social media. And you can reach us by email at sqpod@retrozap.com. We would love to hear your thoughts on Alphabet Squadron, but we welcome discussion and feedback of any kind. Emails, really good tweets, iTunes reviews end up in silence pools. Again, our email address is sqpod@retrozap.com.
And hey, you know what we are? We are a proud member of the RetroZap.com podcast network, if you did not know. Please check out RetroZap for other great shows, including the Superhero Suite featuring Jay and Josh, other Star Wars shows such as Kanaz Castle and Brews and Blasters, collecting shows like The Dork Lair, and wonderful shows like the Animaniacast, the Artcast, Deucecast Movie Show, the Doomcast, Warp Trails, Techno Retro Dads, previously on Lost, and We Know Nothing. Also be sure to check out our Scoundrels t-shirts on TeePublic. They are not endorsed by Tori Spelling. She's in the news.
Thanks to Aaron Lee for our show logos, and to James Volpe, the Sky Geek, for our The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly show logo. And thanks to Mario and the Scoundrels players for lending us their voice talents.
And here is our disclaimer. Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and or Disney. This show is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. All else is the intellectual property of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels unless otherwise indicated.
And here's the part of the show where I always have regrets. And when I ask, any final thoughts?
So, a little backstory, a little backside of history here. Apparently all those rebel pilots had hearing problems after the war, unfortunately.
Hearing problems? Aw, that's sad. Was it all that exposure to loud noises and stuff?
Yeah, it was actually because of flying their ships. It gave them really severe tinnitus, so they have a constant winging in their ear.
Yep. Regret confirmed. Okay. Well, that'll do it for episode 84 of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Thanks for listening. Until next time, may the Force be with you.